بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All praise and thanks belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May the peace and blessing of Allah be upon His servant and final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My dear respected brothers in Islam, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he was in Medina, one day came by and he sent a companion to Bani Sa'd. Bani Sa'd is the tribe in which the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam breastfed from. This is where Halim al-Sa'diyya was from Bani Sa'd. And Bani Sa'd is a town that is basically in between Mecca and Al-Ta'if. It's about 30 kilometers away from Mecca. So he sent this companion to them to invite them and to call them to Islam. This companion went there, he invited them, very unsuccessful. They rejected him and he turned back and he went to Medina. Among Bani Sa'd, there was a man that was intelligent and he wanted to give Islam a thought. So he got onto his camel and he headed straight towards the source, straight towards Al-Madinah. He wants to go and investigate on himself. As he got to Al-Madinah and he's on his camel, he's entering, he starts to scream out, Ayna ibn Abdul Muttalib, Ayna ibn Abdul Muttalib. Where is the son of Abdul Muttalib? Where is he? And he's looking for Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. For someone says to him, you'll find him in the masjid, go to Al-Masjid al-Nabawi. And so he rides until he gets to Al-Masjid and he ties his camel and he comes down and he walks inside of the masjid and he screams again, Ayna ibn Abdul Muttalib, Ayna ibn Abdul Muttalib. And so one Sahabi gets up and he says to him, you'll find him up at the front of the masjid. He's the one dressed in the white, go there. So he walks and he gets to the front and he's still confused. There are a few men wearing white. So again he says, Ayna ibn Abdul Muttalib. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Ana ibn Abdul Muttalib. Naam, when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was leaning, he's sitting down, he's leaning. So he says, Inni sa'iluk wa mushaddidun alayka fi su'al. He says, I'm going to ask you a few questions and I'm going to be very tough and rough and very harsh in the way I ask. So he says, please don't hold anything against me. That's how I am. I'm from the Bedouins and that's how we are. We have no manners when we speak and please excuse me. For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said to him, go ahead, sal amma bada lak, it's alright. But then Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, rahmatan lil alameen anyway. So he won't be disturbed by whatever you ask. For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, go ahead and ask what you want to ask. So then this man, he began to ask. He said, Man rafa'a as-sama', who raised the sky? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Allah. He said to him, Faman basata al-ard, who flattened the earth? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Allah. So then he says, وَمَنْ نَصَبَ الْجِبَالِ, who pegged the mountains? He says, Allah. For then this companion, or this man, he says, أَسْأَلُكَ بِالَّذِي رَفَعَ السَّمَاءِ وَبَسَطَ الْأَرْضِ وَنَصَبَ الْجِبَالِ أَاللَّهُ أَرْسَلَكَ رَسُولًا. I ask you by the one who raised the sky and flattened the earth and pegged the mountains. Did Allah really send you a messenger to us? When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was leaning, so then he got up and he sat in a straight position and he said, Allahumma na'am. Yes, no doubt about it. For then he asks him again, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command you to forbid us from worshipping the idols? When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Allahumma na'am. For this man goes again with another question. He says, did Allah command you to teach us that there are 5 prayers we have to pray in the day and the night? And that there's zakat we have to pay, and Ramadan, and Hajj, and he began to count a few things in Islam. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is just responding, Allahumma na'am, Allahumma na'am, Allahumma na'am. And then at the end, he says, if I was to do everything you said yes to, and I don't increase anything, nor do I decrease anything, do I enter the paradise? For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Allahumma na'am. So then he said to him, Ana Dimam ibn Tha'labah, from Bani Sa'd, wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. He turned around and he began to run to outside of the masjid to get to his camel. And as he's running, he had 2 strands of braided hair. And because he's running, of course, they're jumping up and down as well. They're hitting onto his shoulder. For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he's sitting with his companions and he says to them, Aflaha, Aflaha, and he forgot his name, so he said, Aflaha dhul aqisatayni in sadaq. Meaning Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that this man, I forgot his name, but he called him dhul aqisatayn. meaning the man with this 2 strands of braided hair that are jumping up and down. He said, this man is successful if he spoke the truth. If he does stick to what I said to him and doesn't increase anything on it, nor does he decrease, this man is successful, enters the paradise. For he runs outside, he gets on his camel, and he unties the camel as he's on it. So this is a symbolic of the fact of how much he's in a rush. And he begins the journey, the long journey back home to Bani Sa'd, about 700 kilometers. After a few days, he gets to Bani Sa'd. And as he comes in, his father comes to greet him. So he says to his father, stay away from me. The father says, well, what's wrong with you, son? He says, I have a different deen to your deen. Keep away from me. Then his father said, what's your deen? Explain it. And he begins to explain his deen. His father says, khalas son, I'm upon your same deen. Yani. He says, all right, go have a shower, come back and I'll teach you more. His mother comes, and his mother comes to greet him, and he says, mother, ilayka anni, move away from me. So she says to him, what's wrong with you? He says to her, my deen is different to your deen. So she says, what's your deen? Explain. And he begins to sit down and explain in a few minutes, and she's convinced, she accepts Islam. He tells her, go have a shower, come back and I'll teach you more. His sister comes to him. She says, keep away from me. She says, why? He says, I'm different deen to you. So she says, aren't you afraid that these idols would curse you and they'll make you sick and they'll harm you? He says, we don't believe in that in our deen. So she says, explain your deen. And he explains exactly what he learned in 5 minutes. And she's convinced and she accepts Islam. The narrator of the hadith, he says, on that day, just before the sun set, the entire tribe accepted Islam. These are his efforts. Subhanallah, you see it, the case of Dimam ibn Tha'laba, my brothers. He hadn't memorized any Quran, no hadith, no Sahih al-Bukhari or Muslim. He did not sit with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in gatherings. He did not attend Friday prayers, nothing. All he had was the 5 minutes he took from the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he realized and he understood that when one accepts and enters this deen, he has a responsibility. Anything, whatever he knows, he has to spread it and he has to teach it. He needs to do something for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My brothers, there was this, one time, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is sitting in the masjid. And as usual, people walk in and they give him the sadaqat. People walk in, they have a question, they ask him and so on. They're walking in and out. And one day he's sitting, he realized in the back of the masjid a black woman. She was a slave as well. وَكَانَتْ تَقُمُّ الْمَسْجِدِ. She was cleaning the masjid. Miswak scraps on the floor, she picks it up. Some rubbish on the floor, she picks it up, she cleans the masjid. She's doing that every day. Days go by, when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam sees her every day, until one day, he doesn't see her. So the next day he doesn't see her. The third day he doesn't see her. So he asks the companions, أين المرأة? Where's that al-mar'at al-sawda? Where's that black woman? Where is she? That cleans the masjid. They said to him, Ya Rasulullah, إنها ماتت بليل. She died at night. And we washed her, and we shrouded her, we prayed on her, we buried her. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said to them, هلا آذنتموني? Why didn't you seek my permission? They said, Ya Rasulullah, she died at night. In other words, what the companions are saying, we belittled her case so much that we thought it wasn't worth waking you up for her. So, we just let the night pass, so we just did everything and we didn't ask you. It's like the Sahaba didn't see any virtue for her, or no fadl for her. She's just a black woman that died at night and we finished and we buried her. For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he got a bit upset. So he said to them, La. He said, Dulluni ala qabriha. Very famous words. Dulluni ala qabriha. He says, direct me and take me to her grave now. Let's go, let's go. So he got up and he walked with her until they walked into the cemetery and they said, this is her grave. Then he stood at her grave and he began, Allahu Akbar, 4 takbirat, and he prayed salat al-janazah on her. And then after this, he turned to his companions and he said, Inna hadhihi al-qubur mamlu'atan dhulmatan ala ahliha. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُنَوِّرُهَا بِصَلَاتِ عَلَيْهِمْ. He said that these graves are full of darkness on the ones that are inside of it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lightens it up with my salat upon them. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, my brothers, what was he proving? What was he doing? He basically set a golden standard rule that the value of a human being, and learn this, the value of a Muslim, the honor of a Muslim, the worth of a Muslim in that which he presents of goodness and benefit to others and to his society. This is the value of a Muslim. So much so that only value that black woman, a slave woman, had was because of the small thing that she did for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that was cleaning the masjid. Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was trying to teach them that, Ya Sahaba, even though most of you are learned, more learned than her, what did you do for your deen? Look what she did. At least she cleaned the masjid. Doesn't matter how small your job is, but she did something for this deen. And with that, she was given this value. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself would get up and pray after they had already prayed on her. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam sometimes, he'd be very careful on who he prays on, who he doesn't pray on. For he saw that importance and significance in this woman that he did what he did, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam teaches us a very standard rule and a great golden rule. There was a man that came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This man hadn't accepted Islam. He wants to accept Islam. Look what he says. He says to Rasulullah, he says, Ya Rasulullah, أَأُسْلِمُ وَأُقَاتِلْ أَمْ أُقَاتِلُ وَأُسْلِمْ. He's confused. He says, Ya Rasulullah, do I accept Islam, then fight fi sabilillah? Or do I fight fi sabilillah, then accept Islam? For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said to him, Aslim thumma qatil. Accept Islam and then fight. But you know, what's wrong with this Sahabi? Why is he confused? Then he knows, and he's seen enough to understand that whoever gets into this deen has to do something for this deen. But do I do that thing before, or should I do it after? He got confused. He thought that you had to do something first, then you're worthy of saying La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, until the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that accept Islam and then do something. Subhanallah, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught us this on many occasions. I'll give you one more narration on this. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentions to us, of course this is in Sahih al-Bukhari, that imra'atun baghi min Bani Israel, a woman that is baghi from Bani Israel, baghi, an adulteress, a prostitute. In other words, what she does is haram and a sin. The money she earns is haram and it's a sin. What she calls others to is haram and a sin. A baghi is sin upon sin upon sin. Cannot think of worse than something like a baghi nowadays. He says baghi. He says this woman that was a baghi from Bani Israel, as she's walking, she was thirsty, she's looking for water. She sees a dog as well that is thirsty, and he's licking the dirt, sucking the moisture out of the dirt. That's how thirsty he was. Until she found a well. She went in, she drank for herself, and she filled her shoes with water. She came back up and she gave it to the dog. And the hadith mentions, فَشَكَرَ اللَّهُ لَهَا فَأَدْخَلَهَا الْجَنَّةِ. Allah appreciated her deed and He admitted her into the paradise. Why? And she did something beneficial for someone, for an animal. And you see, you can imagine what is the reward of a person if he was to provide clean water to a human being, let alone a dog, or provided food to a human being, or provided shelter, or helped aid someone. And that this is your value. Your value is in what you do for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Two things you need to keep in your mind as a Muslim. Number one, your value is that of the goodness you do to your society and others. And number two, do not belittle anything you do to this deen. Nothing. Even if it was to wipe down the shelves where the people put their shoes, or to clean whatever, you find something and you took that as a job for yourself. And this is the worth, this is the value of a Muslim. He does something, not only for himself and doesn't care about anyone. And there's no worth in that. If you're a Muslim, even anta da'iyah. That's the say that when you're a Muslim, in other words, you have become a caller to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You need to do something for the deen of Allah. Choose something and do it. Even if it was to help or participate in something people are doing. Help out, whatever it is. Alhamdulillah, in a country like this, the opportunities are endless. There are a lot of masajid that need a lot of help, that need whatever it is. Put yourself in anything. see whatever, anyone needs any help, and wallahi, if it's made easy for you, and you find that ability to start working even something small, and this is a sign that Allah Azza wa Jal has accepted you and has accepted what you're working, that Allah Azza wa Jal honored you to do something to help other Muslims. This, you should see it as an honor. So this is why, subhanAllah, they used to say that when one gives a sadaqah, he really helped himself before he helped the poor. لأن this sadaqah becomes a witness for him on the Day of Judgment that he helped with it someone, he fed with it someone. So in reality, the good that you do, as small as it is, really, it is benefiting you more than it is benefiting anyone you're doing it for. Then it becomes a witness for you on the Day of Judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى. Anyone who does an ant's weight of good, he will see on the Day of Judgment. And if it was done sincerely, perhaps that is the deed that admits him into the paradise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنْ كَانَ مِثْقَالَ حَبَّةٍ مِّنْ خَرْدَلٍ أَتَيْنَا بِهَا. Even if it was the weight of a mustard seed of goodness that one does, will bring on the Day of Judgment. And perhaps that could be the difference between you and the hellfire, and this admitting you into the paradise. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to serve this deen and to honor us by serving this deen, and we ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us, to make us people of the Quran, people who benefit from the reminders of the Quran and the Sunnah. إنه ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.